Good morning. It is May the 8th, 2026. We really do live on a very sad planet, in a very sad civilization, with very sad people. For real. All manners of horrors encompass this planet, and everyone from the death cult members down to the peons is a part of this. There are two real major types of freedom. It's physical freedom and spiritual freedom. And there are very, very few people that have either of the above. With physical freedom, being restricted to varying degrees. Of course, there are people who are enslaved, literally, who are bound, who are trapped in small places. And then there are people who are lacking financial freedom, bound to jobs they despise, but they can't escape. There are so there's physical freedom. Spiritual freedom is serving God. It is believing that serving God and thus serving goodness is the priority, and therefore not being ruled by fear of physical slavery, but being ruled by compassion. And these two core freedoms, when combined, give people the freedom to behave without restraint. So most people, almost everyone, are highly restricted in the things that they can say, the beliefs they can express, the actions they can take, because they can't jeopardize the relationships that they depend upon, whether they depend upon those for financial support or for a sense of self-worth. And it's sad. It's awful. And if people only knew how foolish they are being, especially with regard to spiritual freedom. The Bible tells us in so many words that every knee will bow to God, to compassion, to goodness. How can this be possible when people have free will and when people have devoted themselves, their lives, to serving evil, even openly in some cases, such as death cult members? And the answer is because God has sufficient power to compel that. There are two motivations that can compel action. One is the threat of physical punishment, and the other is the promise of reward. I believe that God is compassionate and therefore doesn't administer physical punishment simply for the sake of punishing, but that punishment is a side effect of serving goodness, that suffering is a side effect, and that given some people have been better than others, and that all will bow, you might as well have those who have the most unbalanced ledger do the toughest work that you've got to assign to meet your ultimate objective, which is joy. Universally. So it's real tough. It's been real tough being around what to me appears to be psychosis. People who have really underestimated how serious we libertarians are, how serious we believers in God are. And how grave the consequences of that are. So, it's May 6th, May 8th. As I mentioned at the start of this video, it's Friday. And the war seems to be back on in full force, although those of us who follow it never really believed it had ended. It's one thing you got Team Blue, who are just the favorites, the absolute favorites of the death cult, because At this point, they're just the absolute most loyal believers in the bullshit that exists. You can see everything that taxation is doing in this world, and they continue to jump and clap for it. You can see what democracy has done. They continue to dance and clap for it. You can see how ruthless and cruel the ruling group is, and they will beg to be disarmed before them. They're the most subservient of all classes, and seemingly the most unwilling to question themselves. Then you got the so-called right, and there you got kind of more of a spectrum of loyalty. I don't fully grasp how people on the right can still be loyal. And certainly since this administration took power, a lot of people who helped put it into power have since distanced themselves from the ideas. But even some of the guys who have spoken out against some of the stuff continue to speak in favor of bad ideas that are obviously bad ideas once you think about them. Yeah. The truth is, people have more to learn than what I'm going to give you in a video. And really, people have a lot more to learn than what's even in my book, because every person you encounter is a wealth of knowledge. And even though I've been soaking up knowledge for years, there's perspectives I haven't encountered, either because I just haven't happened upon them, or because people have been close-lipped, because like I said, most people are highly restricted in what they can do. But there is a base level of reality, and I'm part of that. I exist, my perspective exists, and my reality exists. As time goes on, I think that's gonna become louder. Now that I've stopped using pot, I'm louder. I'm more obvious. And to me, other people have also become louder. It's become easier for me to have discernment with respect to other people and what their priorities are. And it's easier for me to see the psychosis that exists not only in Team Blue and Team Red, but in everyone who isn't taking physical reality and spiritual reality seriously. Yeah, these are really important things that I talk about. Um, and people just want to have a little laugh, you know. Um, there's 1,000 ways these cults, their propaganda, these little ideas become common knowledge. These stupid little ideas, and they get ingrained in even people who aren't fully indoctrinated in a particular cult politically. Um, they still believe these silly little ideas. Um, and, and they just, whether that idea is that the dollar's going to maintain its purchasing power, or that the bond market's not going to collapse, or that the war is winding down, um, or that this particular group of people is universally evil based on some common characteristic. So there's a lot of sickness. But, I have also not been free on a physical level. There's a lot I've had to keep under wraps because years ago I realized that people will do whatever they can to try to get a hold of you, try to control you, try to bend you to where they want you to fit. Um, so there's a lot I haven't disclosed for that reason. And there's a lot I haven't disclosed because I've known that people won't give me what I need them to give me if I do. But good news is that seems to be winding down. And so, like I said, going forward, you can expect me to be a bit louder, a bit more in your face, a bit more undeniable. Even if physically I'm less in your face because I'm less around you because my schedule is shifting. So, I'm going to keep persevering. I'm going to work on my projects that I believe have, well, depending on the project, my novel, I think it can really change this world um, for the better. And my exchange maybe can help it survive until it does and beyond. I'm going to see a doctor in a few hours. This hand, this wrist, whatever's going on hasn't healed, which sucks. Hopefully nothing's broken, and if it is, I don't know what the implications of that are. But I'm glad I'm going to see someone, and I've been resting my knee. My surface wound is good enough, but I am still having internal pain. Um, so I want to continue going easy on that knee. Um, I might do a little, maybe 1.5 mile walk in a little bit here, just to try to do something. Um, I got some physical therapy exercises I ought to do. Um, I need to be doing those regularly. I don't know if I can swim because of this wrist. I don't think I can bike because of this wrist. I can't lift weights because of this wrist. Those things suck a lot. Um, but I'm going to do what I can to get myself back into health, to give myself the freedom to do those things. You know, and I got sound logic and I got a sound moral basis. I might have to have some difficult conversations today, but I'm ready to face those conversations. I'm fortunate to have an experience of many difficult conversations over the course of my life. Um, I've been around a lot of different types of people. Um, and like I said, I've been watching my back for years, believing that people will hurt me if they can, disempower me if they can. You know, I don't know what happens. There's always a chance someone could do something to me, but I've done what I can to try to mitigate those risks. I've tried to avoid making enemies on a personal level, and um, I've taken other precautions where I felt that is prudent. But ultimately, I don't know what happens, and I believe in the resurrection of the dead. I believe that Jesus Christ was resurrected. I believe that Lazarus was resurrected. And I believe that the dead will be resurrected. Um, I believe that all humans will face their Creator. Um, but I don't believe that it is professed belief in a particular theology that is going to be the most crucial um, factor when facing judgment and when facing uh, a sentence. So I can't change things I've done in the past. You can't change the things you've done either. But we can both work towards goodness going forward. Yeah. Um, there's several subplots within the novel that I'm working on, and one of those subplots is a subplot of redemption. Um, I believe that redemption is possible because I believe in a compassionate God. And for me, if someone's irredeemable, I think it's better if I had the choice, if I were God, to just end them so that um, joy can exist without them, than it would be to just torment them. I mean, Carl Jung is, in my opinion, the greatest psychologist to ever live. I think he has an incredibly grounded perspective, and he was an incredibly wise man. And one of the things he said was, typically it is the tortured who become the torturers. I believe that. I don't think that the people in power, whether we're talking about politicians or we're talking about maybe a death cult that um, is the true runner of stuff, I don't believe they know any real joy. Um, I believe that any pleasures they have are fleeting and that they will face eternity beyond this life, including a redemption arc, um, because the Bible tells me all knees are going to bow. Um, so, yeah, it's all about control. People like to be in control. But eventually, people lose control. This is a thing that happens with addiction. Um, but it's a thing that is going to happen in a very widespread way. And specifically, these people who want to run the world, man, I mean, they're just losing it. They're losing the narrative, they're losing the support. Yeah, you still got Team Blue that's still got loyalists, but they're just a tiny, tiny fraction of the population. And the same with the Trump loyalists. Um, and they're not going to have the ability to control shit because the credit is collapsing. The bond market is going to collapse. The currency, all that. This new virus, it's like those of us who were at the spearhead speaking out against the controls of the last pandemic. It's like we almost don't even need to be involved anymore because there's just so many people that just instinctively rebel against this now. And people are running out of things to lose, man. I mean, once food riots begin, it's a different kind of protest. Like, all the obedient Team Blue chanters, well, they'll probably be staying at home because you tell them to stay at home and wear a mask, and isolate. But that doesn't mean that no one's going to show up to these protests when most of the population loses the ability to eat because the food banks run dry. Um, which is we're on the verge of, man. I mean, oil, oil's going to go back up. I mean, the strait's been shut all this time. Now, the markets are mispricing the derivative market, and how much of that is manipulation and how much of that is just stupidity, I don't know. But you can't create barrels of oil out of nothing. You can't create ounces of silver out of nothing. So reality's gonna hit them. And we're there, man. We're fucking there, man. Silver's $80, man. You watching it this week. Yeah, oil. Oil's gonna go fucking ballistic, man. And that's gonna be it. Yeah, things were already so bad, but they're not bad enough that the food riots start because people can still eat. Um, as bad as they are. And once you hit that point, now you get these people who just have nothing to lose. And a person with nothing to lose has a certain freedom that a person with something to lose doesn't have. Um, yeah, people are animals, ultimately. They're biological beings. They have biological demands. And eating is chief among those things. So I can tell that people haven't yet reached that point because they're still not interested in my book. They're still not interested in sharing my videos or trying to understand um, why I oppose them. Because if you really um, want change, you're going to need to step into the shoes of people who disagree on the kind of changes we need and understand them. Because else you're not going to convince them, you know? And right now they can live without convincing anyone. Right now, they're eating. Their masters are still feeding them. But this is going away, man. So I don't know if I'll get back to sleep. It's 2 a.m. Um, yeah, it's Friday, so even if I don't get much sleep, I can catch up over the weekend.